What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So it's kind of funny because I missed the last couple games, obviously. Not that I didn't watch them, but I just couldn't do reviews for them at the time. But I did want to talk about the Arsenal game at the beginning of this video just because I felt like there was some stuff to talk about. Thank you to everybody who played today because, now I don't feel like I need to talk about it because clearly that game didn't mean anything. Because we're right back to where we've been so many times. Just copy and paste. A lot of just domination of possession. Maybe we should try to have some shots at some point. Maybe when we have those shots, maybe they should be on target with power. Maybe at some point. Because it's the same. And that's the problem with whenever you just go and buy a bunch of young players who are talented but don't fit together in a system, is that one, they're not going to fit together well in that system because we don't have players that play the same way. So thank you, Bowley, for that. And also the fact that they're young means you're not going to get the same performance out of them every single game. That's just the fact of it. A lot of these young players, they're very energetic, but they lack concentration. They lack focus. So whenever, last week against Arsenal, they're all focused in, they're all working together well, they're playing off it. It was great. It was fantastic to watch. It looked good. But then this week, something changed. Their mentality changed a little bit, and now we can't even we can't even break down Brentford. Not saying that Brentford are an awful team, but Brentford, Arsenal. Arsenal are a better team, and we manhandled them until, Sanchez gave them away back into the game. Brentford, we never looked like we were winning this game. For the first 15 minutes, we did, but then we went right back. And it's happened before. How many times have we seen this where first 15, 20 minutes of a game, we dominate, and then we don't score, and then suddenly now Brentford are like, oh, hey, they still haven't scored. Let's play a little bit. And then they start to play. You get to halftime, and then Brentford come out looking strong because they had that team talk at halftime where the coach was like, hey, guys, we're doing good. We haven't let them score on us yet. Let's go out and let's show them what we got. I thought Pochettino was a better halftime team talker than the past two, because last year we had those moments where it felt like they went in and Potter was just like, all right, guys, sip your tea. Now go out there and you just have fun. And the guys go out and they just had some tea, so they're a little like, oh. No, man, they scored on us. It happened so many times last year, I was convinced that Potter was like slipping him some melatonin at halftime. Today, it was right back to that. We came out second half, we had that one ball forward where it was like, let's go! It was exhausting, guys. Man, they scored on. It was obvious to me. As soon as we started the second half, my thought was, at best, we get a 0-0 draw out of this. But we're not scoring, and there's a good chance that they're going to get a goal on us. So, yeah, it sucks, but this is what our owner has done to us. Bowley is the problem. Clear, plain, and simple. He is the issue. He's brought in all these players that don't work together. He tried a young manager who was doing pretty well at Brighton. He wasn't ready for it. But he's like, oh, but he's young, and I want to get all these young kids in, and we're going to do a good job. We're going to grow this team from the ground. You can't do that at this level. You can't just go and get a bunch of young talent and just hope it all comes together. You can't do that. You have to find players that fit into a system, and not just that, fit into a system that works for the manager you have. Because a lot of managers, they have different styles, techniques, the way that they set up their teams. They have different ways of playing. But Bowley doesn't know any of that. Because baseball is a super simple sport. It's so easy that statistics most of the time dictate what happens. That's why so many people that love statistics love baseball, because the stats most of the time do not lie for baseball. The stats in football, they lie all the time. Again, look at how much possession we have based on how many goals we score. We look like we're dominating the game possession-wise. Goals-wise, shots-wise, we probably, 6 shots today maybe? And I think the one on target that Cucurella just sort of backpassed to the keeper. So you got an owner coming from a game, a sport, where statistics are just the god of the sport. And then you come to football where stats don't matter. They try to make them matter. They try to bring out all these stats. Oh, look at this stat and look at this. Stats don't matter here. The one stat that matters, how many goals are you scoring? How many goals are you conceding? That's the stats that matter. That's it. So until Boley leaves this club or the fans riot and kick him, I mean, we're going to be screwed. We're going to be lucky to avoid relegation this year based on how we played today. I mean, I know not every game is going to be like this, and we still do have a lot of injuries, but also, why are we having so many injuries still? Why is Fernandez gone? Because not having him in the middle definitely affected us today. So what happened? How come our physio team can't keep players healthy? I don't know. But Boley clearly doesn't give a shit because we still have the problem even after 2 years. So yeah, I mean, Boley is just, I'm done with him until he's gone. I mean, it's Boley out, like hashtag Boley out on all social media every single game. I don't care if we win. I don't care if we lose. I want him out of my club. I just don't know what to do to make that happen. Maybe I need to become like maybe if I get famous enough, maybe one of these acting roles will take off that, maybe an agent will pick me up and I'll get cast in some big name movie and then I can make $1 billion and then I can just buy the club from Boley and be like, let me show you how it's run. Anyways, but just going into, I guess, the game today, yeah, like I said, it showed the inconsistency in the team. It showed the lack of just awareness. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but the youth, the inexperience showed today because it was very clear after the first 15 minutes, it was not our game. It was going to be Brentford. It was either going to be a draw or Brentford because at some point you could just see the heads start to drop. You could see the play start to slow down as the ideas ran away, as Brentford closed down everything and packed it in. And you knew as soon as that first goal for Brentford went in, that was it. They were packing it in. It was going to be a ton of time wasting, and that was the end of the game. So as soon as that goal came, I'm like, yep, there we go. So, yeah, I mean, for Pochettino, I mean, there's not a whole lot he can do. I mean, you look at the bench that he had today. Clearly, we're missing a ton of players through injury, and that's not his fault. I will say I don't understand why he put Disasi on the right with Gusto and James both available. I know James is still kind of returning from injury, but Gusto, he played pretty well last week. Obviously, he was at fault for the second goal, but for the most part, he actually played pretty well against Arsenal. So I don't know why we went with Disasi, who's been nothing but a center back throughout this entire season. But he did, and we saw the result, And I mean, that first goal, it's all him. Lets the guy run in behind him, and easy header, easy goal. And honestly, he didn't really give us much of anything. So I will say for Pochettino, I don't understand that decision. I don't know why he made that change. I feel like it would have been better to move Cucurella over to the right, Disasi in, Colwill on the left. I think that would have been the better option than if for some reason Gusto is not 100% and you can't play him today. But, I mean, Pochettino, I mean, obviously he's up against it right now. It's not really anything that he's doing wrong. He's just... He's hindered with the fact that he's got a bunch of players that don't fit together in one same system. They're just a bunch of talented players that are kind of a hodgepodge that he's trying to make it work. Also, the fact that, again, all the injuries he's having to deal with, it's not his fault. I'm not throwing any blame on Pochettino because from what I'm seeing, he is bringing the best out of a couple of these guys that I mean, you look at Cucurella's past couple games, I didn't think I would see Cucurella play this well in a Chelsea jersey. So clearly, as a manager, as a coach, he is getting the best out of some of these guys. He's just hindered by the fact that he doesn't have enough talent, he doesn't have enough experience out there to really bring together a winning side at the moment. So, yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's the life we're living with right now because of Boley. So, as far as, because I do want to talk about just... mainly because last week we had that one moment where it was like handball in the box, and I'm thinking, there's no way the refs are going to give it to us, and then they did. And I'm like, oh, maybe the refs don't hate us anymore. Maybe they'll actually call. And then all of a sudden, this game, Sterling gets shoved in the back, and the referee's like, no, no, my Brentford babies would never touch anybody inappropriately. That sounds wrong. I don't know why I worded it that way. But it was just, I mean, from minute one, you could tell the instruction to Lee Mason was, hey, if a Brentford player hits the ground, it's a foul. Chelsea player hits the ground, it's not a foul. Because that was how it went for most of the game. I still, the one moment that stuck out to me the most, though, was that moment where Brentford player clears it, kicks the Chelsea player in his clearance, and then goes over like a sack of potatoes. And Mason at first, he does the, no, get up, get up. And then he looks back and sees the guy is still writhing in agony on the ground. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was for real. I didn't know this was, I didn't know you actually, oh my God. Tweet. No, 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 no. No, no, no. That's a foul. Oh, see, my whistle brought him back to life. Oh, I'm so glad I could help you out, bud. Like, it was so funny to see him go from this to he's on the ground more than a second. Well, I guess he can't be faking now, so that must be a foul. It's just so bad. Or the moment where Gallagher, like, put his body in the way in the second half of the defender and, like, essentially just won the ball. And somehow the AR was like, no, you can't do that. I mean, obstruction's not a rule anymore, but somehow that's obstruction, even though that was never obstruction because the ball was right there. That's a foul. You can't touch people. But anyways, just obviously can't control the referees, but it is funny to me to go from, hey, we actually had a referee that called it fair last weekend. Maybe things are getting better with referee. No, never mind. Lee Mason stepped in and said, no. This isn't getting better. We're getting worse. We are awful at our jobs. But individuals, first starting with Sanchez, who I don't understand why he's still starting after last weekend. I guess Petrovic must be like the worst keeper in the world to not be able to take his position. But what I will say, just kind of another jab at Bowley and what an awful job he's doing with the club. You bring in a manager who clearly wants to play out of the back. That's how he's been playing since preseason. And then you get rid of the keeper that can play well with his feet and bring in a keeper who constantly gives the ball away with his feet. Somebody want to explain that to me? I don't like Kepa. I never liked Kepa. I thought he was a waste of money when we brought him in. Sanchez is worse. And it's funny because in one of the Facebook pages that I'm in with other Chelsea fans, somebody had mentioned that, like, oh yeah, for all you fans that want Kepa out, hope you're happy. Here's the thing. Kepa needed to leave. He was not a good keeper. But just because they brought in a worse keeper does not suddenly mean that Kepa... It's like last season with Potter. You know, Potter was an awful manager. He wasn't getting the job done. He wasn't... Every game we looked worse. He needed to go. Lampard comes in and we lose. And it's like, oh, see, Lampard's terrible. We should have stayed with Potter. It's like, okay, well, just because they brought in a worse manager doesn't mean Potter wasn't good or wasn't bad. You know, he was still bad at what he was doing. So yeah, Sanchez, he's a worse keeper than Kepa. And he's terrible with his feet. But that's kind of where I'm like, okay, so obviously Kepa, we needed to upgrade. We needed to get better. However, in the meantime, until we can find a keeper that is better, why not stick with a keeper who is good with his feet to play for a manager that wants to use the keeper a lot for his feet? Like, again, for Bowley, what are you thinking? Are you communicating with Pochettino at all? Like, are you talking to him and saying, hey, what do you need? Because if I'm Pochettino, the way that I want to play as Pochettino, Kepa's the keeper that I want over Sanchez. So why didn't we keep Kepa and not buy Brighton's third-string keeper? But again, Bowley, I mean, he clearly is funding Brighton's revolution. So another way to give them some money. Hey, we'll buy that keeper that you guys aren't using anymore. In the defense, I mean, Disasi on the right side, again, he's not a right back. He's not ever played right back as far as I can tell. I mean, at least at Chelsea. So I don't know why we went with him for right back today, but yeah, he was awful. He looked like he was out of position. It looked like he didn't know what he was doing out there. I mean, as many times as Madueke had an opportunity to drive inside and then lay it out to a right back making an overlapping run, Gusto and James would have just absolutely had a field day in that first half. I don't know if we would have scored anything still because our finishing is so awful, but I mean, that was one of the areas where it felt like there was a lot of potential to create something, but Disasi doesn't know what he's doing out there. So, yeah, he was not good today. He was probably one of our worst players. Um, yeah. In the middle, Silva and Colwill both played okay. Neither of them really, they weren't fantastic today, but they weren't bad either. They did their jobs well enough, and Brentford come flying down the field. It's tough to handle constantly, but they did as well as they could for most of that second half. So, in the first half, I felt like part of the reason why we kept them pinned in for so long was because Silva and Cole were aware and ready to step in and win the ball. So, on the left side, Cucurella, like I said, I mean, Pochettino, it's like he found that on switch that changed Cucurella from a trash, League Two at best player to he looks like a Premier League player now. I don't think he's necessarily like gonna be setting the league alight anytime soon, but he's at least doing his job effectively at the moment. I mean, last weekend against Arsenal, he was probably one of our best players, and then this weekend, he wasn't as good as last weekend, but he was still very effective. He still didn't let a whole lot come down that left side, and he was very involved going forward too. So, I mean, it's gotta keep this way. Like, you can't drop back into what we've seen before, because I have been fooled in the past. I have seen a couple players that I'm like, oh, maybe they can handle it at this level. Like Jorginho, for example. There were a couple games where I'm like, hey, maybe Jorginho is a good player. And then a few games later, he just reverts right back to that same old Jorginho, and I'm like, nah, never mind. So Cucurella, if he drops off again, I won't be too surprised. But if he manages to keep this going and keep this form, hey, good for him. I'm happy to see that somebody does appear to be getting better, even though some players are getting worse. Like Gallagher, for example. Yeah, today was just... And some of it I do think is because he's playing a bit deeper. I don't think that's his best role, but unfortunately because you've only got Caicedo, Fernandez, Lavia, who's not available, Ugachukwu, who's been kind of hit or miss, and then Gallagher. I don't think Gallagher wants to be on that list, but we don't have a whole lot of options, and two of those players are unavailable at the moment, and one of them, again, Ugachukwu has not been phenomenal. He's been good, and then he's been awful. So, unfortunately, Gallagher does have to be one of those names that possibly gets put back there, and he's just not that type of player. He's better when he's further forward, and I think we saw that last week. I think we saw that against Burnley. He does well when he's further down the field and not having to drop so deep to defend and distribute and stuff, because distribution's not one of his strong points. Caicedo, not as bad as I've seen before, but still not good. Still too many moments where it feels like, why did we pay this much for you? Because you're bang average. It's just... I don't see what the whole fuss was about. I don't see why Chelsea and Liverpool were breaking the bank to bring him in. I look at him and I think, I mean, he's decent. Keeps the ball moving, decent energy in the midfield. Defensively, at times he's okay, but 115 million, I think it was. I mean, what? Why? Outside of, again, Bowley's infatuation with Brighton, but why? He's not that much. He's not worth that much, and he's not one of our worst players at the moment, because, again, there are a couple that are just not really helping us at all. But he went from basically our worst player to now, 5-6 games later, he's now maybe bottom 10 on the team. So not necessarily the bottom of the barrel, but it's still not good. And for the price tag, I mean, it does drop him even more. So, yeah, I don't understand why we brought him in, and I still don't see what he's supposed to bring to the field. Because they're playing him deeper as if he's supposed to be like that either Conte role or Jorginho Fernandez role, maybe. They're playing him as a defensive midfielder. Defensively, he doesn't have it. He's too weak. He's not, nothing that I see from him makes me think, yes, he's going to be a defensive block in there. And then on the ball, keeps the ball moving fine, but some of his passes are astray. So I just don't understand what we what we bought him for. But anyways, going forward on the left side, Sterling. I mean, started the game well, but as it went on, he became probably the worst player on the pitch. Every time the ball went out to him, it was just nothing. Gets sucked out there, and then he does a move, and then kicks it into the defender, and then doesn't try to win it back. He just gave up in the second half. So I got real pissed off at him as the game went on. And it's one of those things where you've got so many young players on the pitch. When you see a young player that kind of loses that motivation or loses that concentration, you're frustrated, but you at least go, well, he's young, so he'll grow out of it. Sterling's not young. He's like, what, 28, 29? He's old enough, he's experienced enough to know you got to keep working. You got to keep busting it. And he doesn't do it consistently enough. He'll have a few games where he does go out there and he does tear it up and it looks fantastic. And you're thinking, yes, go Sterling. And then he'll have games like this where first 10 minutes he's flying, he's all around, he's knocking the ball around. And then as it gets harder, as it gets tougher, he starts walking. He starts just jogging. He starts dribbling into nothing and losing the ball way too easily. So yeah, he's a player that when we brought him in, I was thinking he would have good moments, but I wasn't sure if he was going to be the great player that I think a lot of people wanted him to be. And sure enough, the more I see him, the more I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm expecting from him. These are the type of games that I expect to see more of than the exciting, fast, taking people on Sterling that we've seen before. On the right side, Matty Wakey, outside of that one chance that hit off the crossbar, I didn't see really much from him either. He's a player that's been getting a lot of praise recently. I don't really see that praise being warranted. He has a lot of energy, and I think when he comes off the bench, that's when he is most effective because he comes on with legs and speed, and he wants to take people on. So I think that's when he looks at his best. But from the start, whenever the defenders are also fresh and they're also ready to stand up to him, he's not really that good. And again, he had that one moment where he cuts inside and had a great shot. But after that, once Brentford knew, hey, don't let him cut in on his left, he didn't do anything. So I just don't rate him that highly. I think he could be a pretty good player, in a few years once he's grown a bit more. But I look at him and think, I'd rather see him coming off the bench. I don't want to see him starting. Palmer in the center, he's a player that, even though he is also young, I feel like he's already hit that point of he's ready to start. He's our most promising player at the moment. He's our most positive player. Almost everything he does, it looks calm, collected, and controlled. It looks like he knows what he's doing. A couple of times there can be moments where he tries to do a little bit too much on the ball, but I do think overall his play is definitely warranting him to start for sure. But it gives me hope to see more of him going forward because he looks good and he looks solid. He looks like a player. He's probably the only thing I'm excited to see. So with my luck and with Chelsea's luck, that means he'll probably be injured in like 3 games and then he'll be out for the rest of the season. So Jackson up front, a player that I was so excited to see more of, that I wanted to see him grow. And it just feels like, I don't know. I don't know what happened to the Jackson we saw in preseason, but God, it feels like he just doesn't do anything anymore. His runs where he was taking on defenders and blowing past them with pace and energy and just, yeah, let's go. There's none of that anymore. Anytime he picks up the ball, it feels like the defenders are like, all right, well, I'm on a jog and I'm staying ahead of him, so no problem for me. I don't understand what happened. I really don't. I don't know if confidence is waning because he hasn't really been scoring a whole lot. Or if, because I know he had an injury early on, so I don't know if maybe that injury is keeping him from really going. But he's done really nothing for us recently. And it's not, we need a striker who's going to go out there and be a menace for the defense, be a problem for the defense. I don't think the defense was troubled at all today by Jackson. Anytime he got the ball, it felt like it was, he takes 3 touches and then loses it. So I'm frustrated because I wanted to see more out of him, and I was very hopeful. Again, there was some feelings of like maybe the next Drogba. It's not happening. He's not a Drogba. When I watch him play now, I'm just like, he's a lesser Abraham at this point. So, and Abraham, I mean, at least gave us something. And Jackson's not really doing much of anything. So, subs that came on, trying to remember. James came on for Disasi. Matson came on for Matiwaki, I believe. And James, I mean, he's a player that everybody's just like, I can't wait till we get him back. The more I see him play, the more I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like he's still very skilled. He's got the quality. I just don't think he has the desire and the work ethic to become a top level player. And it's funny because I think the same thing of his sister too when I watch her play. You know, she's also very, very skilled, very talented, but you watch her work, she doesn't. And so whenever the women's team are facing like the better teams that are capable of keeping up with her pace and her skill, like your Man Cities or your Barcelonas, your who who beat them last year? Is that Bayern or was it Barcelona? I don't know. But anyway, the better teams are able to keep up with her, so she's ineffective in those games because she doesn't really work herself. You know, if she did, she probably would be able to be effective even in those games. But yeah, for Reece James though, it feels like more often than not I see him walking. I see him jogging. I don't see him really pushing himself. You know, when he's on the ball and he loses it, I don't see him busting it to go win it back. I see like a and then he's jogging back. So I want to see more work ethic out of him because I think he has the capability of being one of the best players in the world if he puts his mind to it. I just don't think he is. I don't think he really fully exerts himself. And then Matson, I mean, he's not a Premier League player, and he's had his chances to come on and make something happen. You know, do something off the bench. He's just not capable of it. You know, it's funny because again, he apparently played really well at Burnley in the Championship, which I feel like should be a bit rougher than the Premier League. I feel like every time I see these Championship teams play in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, they typically are the ones that are a bit more aggressive and they're knocking you around. It feels like it's a bit more physical from them. So the fact that he was doing well in the Championship, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe that means he may look a little bit smaller, but maybe he has that just desire to work. He's not doing it here. I don't see that from him. And I mean, the second goal today is entirely on him. You know, he's easily in control. He's ahead of the forward that's going after it, but then he's too weak. He can't hold him off, and he does like a little jump and then falls. And now you've let them in for a second goal. Now our goal difference is even worse because of you, because you weren't strong and fast enough to keep up with the striker. So yeah, I don't rate him that highly. I was hoping he was gonna be something after seeing a bit of him in preseason. I'm thinking, okay, you know, maybe he can work hard for us and be a good asset off the bench. I just don't think he has that capability though. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but from what I've seen recently and what I saw today, I don't think he's going to be an effective player for us. I think the quicker we get players that can be more effective than him onto the bench, the better it will be. And then Ugachukwu and Washington were the other two subs. Ugachukwu, like I said, I mean, he's just very up and down performances. Today was kind of a mid, you know, didn't really see anything bad or good from him. He was out there. And then Washington, I mean, first chance for him, and he's young. So I wasn't expecting too much from him because I knew Brentford were packing it in. I don't expect this kid to go out there and suddenly be our hero. But I didn't see much from him. He had that one opportunity that he kind of mishit. But yeah, all in all, like I said, it's just more of a sign for me that Bowley doesn't know what he's doing. He set us up with a team that we can hold our own against Arsenal. We can best them for most of the game until we make that one mistake. And then we'll come in next week at home against Brentford and we'll look second best for most of the game. Because that's the team we have. That's the players we have. That is what Bowley has set us up with. And until he's gone, this is our life. This is the life of a Chelsea fan. It's just constant pain. We'll have our moments where we get that little bit of hope because we look good, and then the next game all our hope is gone again. So, yep, that's basically it for me. So, waving the Bowley out flag until he's out. That's either that or until we actually see some success, which I just don't see happening. So that's why I'm saying until he's gone, because we're not going to have success under him. So, with all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the game today? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.